Hey there, Overwatch fans, and welcome to the Overwatch League recap right here on ExplosionNetwork.com. I am Ciaran Marchant, and boy, did we have another fantastic day of Overwatch League. I really am enjoying the game so far this season. I think many people were a bit apprehensive to how the GOATS meta would play out and how teams would come out to it. I really enjoy watching high-level GOATS play because it's super interesting watching the minor mechanics of teams being played out. And I think through all four of today's matches, we really saw a wide variety and extensive understanding of GOATS from various teams. We're starting off with the London Spitfire trying to redeem themselves up against the Paris Eternal in their debut match in the Overwatch League. Paris Eternal took this 3-1. London Spitfire just do not seem up to the mark on GOATS. They do not seem up to the mark on this meta. The London Spitfire that won last season, that came up on a meta that capitalized on solo plays, on single character plays, where GOATS relies more on overall team play and teamwork throughout the match. So London going into this, I was already a bit worried about London, but Paris were on a whole different level. I think Paris are among the best teams to be playing GOATS, and that comes from the European heavy background in GOATS. The European GOATS is a lot more aggressive, and literally the aggression is the most important part of how these teams are playing. They play smart, but they hold W and they get in your face. It was fantastic to see all the points play out with a fantastic range of plays throughout all of Paris Eternal. It was really nice to see Soon, the former DPS player of the LE Valiant, stepping up into the role of the Zarya and still managed to make plays. A lot of people were worried that with the current meta being lacking in Widow players and Tracer play, that Soon might not be able to carry the team or might not be able to perform to the best of his ability. But luckily for us, we managed to see that Soon is going to be just fine with that Zarya. And I'm excited to see where he goes with it and just how far he gets things done, because it's going to be absolutely awesome. London Spitfire, though, London Spitfire are 0-2 going into this week, and they waiting for next week now to try and get their first win of this season. And I don't see it being a good start to the season for them at all with this meta playing out. Guard was fantastic on the Sombra. The only map they won was largely one off his Sombra play. He's a Sombra main, and he played so amazingly. The amount of damage he put out in the fights. It was surprising almost to see London Spitfire not including Guard into more maps. He only played the second, and the fourth map. And the fourth map, by the time that came around, Paris Eternal had already adjusted and prepared for the Sombra play going forward. So we had that coming through. The second match of the day was another fantastic match with the Washington Justice making their debut against the New York Excelsior. And many thought, of course, that the New York Excel were going to burst through. Well, that wasn't the case when they managed to turn it up, and Washington Justice really brought the fight to the Excel. Now, throughout the matches, New York Excel did seem to be on another level, but then when New York Excel on Horizon just didn't seem to take Washington too seriously. They threw the game pretty hard. They seemed to be experimenting with comps, which led to them not being able to take first point, and Washington Justice, with a more conventional comp, took the first point fairly easily, giving them their first map win, and looking stronger than a lot of people expected. Both Janice and Corey looked really good on that roster, performing to a very high level. I believe Janice was getting very aimed by the New York Excel, of course being a former teammate of theirs, so it was interesting to see his playstyle. Washington Justice might not be in the spot that we had presumed going into the power rankings for the season, and I'm excited to see what Coach Wizard can do with the squad. Now, New York Excel are looking top tier, but are they the same team as last year? And I think no. I think the core of this team is heavily based on solid team play, but also solid DPS players. And at the minute, we're only getting Nene being super solid. Libro's there, and he's doing a good job on that Brigitte. But Nene is coming off on that Zarya on a high-level tier. But having names such as the big boss himself, Pine, sitting on your bench, Sabiobi sitting on your bench, it's quite incredible. And you've got Flower sat there still as well. So I'm interested to see exactly where the DPS players are going to come out from. What level of tier of play, what's going to happen once we see the Spitfire try and take on the Excel take on a more well-versed team in GOATS, maybe the Vancouver Titans, who we'll talk a bit about later, the San Francisco Shock, or possibly even the Paris Eternal. I'm interested to see how those games play out and exactly which teams come out on top. But the Excel did win that match 3-1, and they go into this weekend being 2-0 up on the standings. Now, the third match of the day was probably the best match of the day as an entire match. The Los Angeles Valiant took it to the Hangzhou Spark in a thrilling 5-map game, and it went absolutely fantastically, went right down to the wire. It was interesting to see the LA Valiant bring in Kuki and Izayaki on the same map. Custer, the Australian prodigy support player, did not make his way onto the roster throughout this game. KSF seemed to stumble, but the big talking point for both the Hangzhou Spark and for Valiant were the Diva players. Both Rhea and Space at different moments throughout the matches really played to an amazing standard, and I believe they are probably the best two divas in the league currently. That is, their super aware play, their bomb placements, their overall positioning in the team is such a pleasure to watch, and I'm really excited to see how they go going forward in the league. It came out in the end with the Hangzhou Spark winning 3-2, going all the way to that final map of Control on Nepal. And what really made the difference were the main tanks in the end. Fate played amazingly on the Valiant the whole time, but Gushway and No Limit on Spark both did fantastically. Specifically, No Limit as well in that last round hit so many fantastic shatters that Valiant really could not put up a good enough fight to retake the point in the end. It was fantastic overall. We were questioning Spark after that awful game against Dragons, and it now seems to be that game might have been more to do with Spark playing around with the meta a little bit, but also Dragons' poor standings without their main tank at the time. So Spark seemed to be the real deal. We had a lot of hype going into this match, and I think this hype is justified. They go 2-0 at the end of this weekend. They are in a fantastic position, and I'm really excited to see where they end up for the remainder of the stage. Now, the fourth match was the Vancouver Titans, probably the most hype and anticipated team for the whole league, getting their debut. The former core roster of the runaway team, Korean contenders team is going up against the Shanghai Dragons. The Vancouver Titans took this game 4-0, and they were emphatic in their win. Every time Vancouver Titans played GOATs, they looked like they were unstoppable. They held W, and they were over-aggressive, and Bumper, the main tank player, has such style and such focus in the role that really led itself to be well worth the play. I think many people might question the aggression of Bumper, but when you're playing in that Runaways team, they're so well coordinated around him. They understand what he wants to do in the match that they're going to back him up and follow him through. So Bumper's aggression is going to be a fantastic asset as well as the rest of the playstyle for the Vancouver Titans going in. The Shanghai Dragons fell short. They looked good at moments. They took a map of control on Busan at the beginning, but then they seemed to fall away. This was Gumsu's first game after 5 days of being on the Shanghai Dragons, and he seemed good still. It's still Gumsu. He's still a fantastic main tank player. He hasn't quite fitted in yet with the team. They haven't had enough time to practice. And overall, the cameras looking at Gumsu by the end of the match, he looked very dejected, very withdrawn into himself. And I really hope that this season he can continue to push through with the Dragons. I think the Dragons are definitely going to get a win at some point throughout the season. I don't know when. They're currently 0-42, so not so great. But we'll see this team rise up, I really hope, in the coming future weeks of the stage. I'm really excited about the Vancouver Titans. They are the real deal as well. It's fantastic to see some of these expansion teams being in the potential to be in the top teams for the league, and that's really exciting to see for many of us. And I really hope that these teams can make an impact on the league and shake up our preconceived ideas about Overwatch, about the Overwatch League from Season 1, and what we can do with the game going forward. Thank you very much for joining me. That was the recap. The predictions for tomorrow's games. It's going to start in Australian time, 7 a.m. The Houston Outlaws versus the Boston Uprising. I have the Uprising going over with the help of Super Carry main tank Fusions. The second game of the day will be Philadelphia Fusion versus the Atlanta Reign. I've got Atlanta Reign going over there. That happens at 8:30 a.m. I think Defran is going to bring such a different, and the whole of Atlanta Reign is going to bring a great playstyle to that game that I don't think Houston Outlaws are going to quite pick up straight away. The San Francisco Shock will be taking on the LA Gladiators, and despite my love of Shields up and Gladiators, the San Francisco Shock just look too damn good. They look excellent, and I don't think there's going to be many teams stopping them at this stage so far with the current meta. And the final game is going to be the Seoul Dynasty versus the Dallas Fuel, and the Dallas Fuel are just going to get crushed. Dynasty looked amazing with Fisher. Maybe Fisher won't play as hard because he isn't against Gladiators, but we'll see his playstyle throughout the whole game, and I'm excited to see how this plays out for the Overwatch League going forward. Thank you very much for joining me once again. Please join me every Wednesday, 7 PM Australian Eastern Daylight Time for a full preview of the Overwatch League going forward and some any news on their drama or what's going on within the Overwatch scene, as well as all other esports on early late nights on twitch.tv/Explosion Network. If you want to get the latest updates on all of our content, please check out our Twitter at ExplosionPod or go to explosionnetwork.com. Or if you want to tell me why my opinions are really crap and you don't believe them, please tweet at me at your boy Ringo. Thank you very much for joining me. Remember, when you're charging in with goats, all you've got to do is hold W. And don't call it goats, apparently. Call it triple. Goodbye.